Okay, yeah. Okay, hello. Thank you for joining the session. My name is Santi, and I'm the CCIE Enterprise Exam Program Manager. I manage both Enterprise Infra and Enterprise Wireless. Obviously, I don't do that on my own. That will be sort of crazy. So what I do, I use and work with lots of SMEs, and they are the ones who help me shape the blueprint and the content that we use in the exams, right? So I have here today with me three of those SMEs. The three of them have been long-time contributors to the CCIE program. I have in the middle Mr. Dave Lucas. He's a principal architect here at Cisco. He has not one, not two, but three CCIEs. He's the one who really likes to show off. So he has been helping me with the CCIE Enterprise Infra for many years now. And Nicholas Darchis, he is a technical leader here at Cisco as well. He's CCIE Wireless, and he's the one who obviously helps me with the CCIE Wireless exam. He's very well known in the wireless community. He has written a few books for Cisco Press as well. So if you are into wireless, I will highly advise you to follow him either in LinkedIn or through Twitter. And then, of course, I'm not quite sure we need to introduce him, actually. Do we?
I don't have a CCIE, though.
Mr. David Peñaloza, he's CCDE. And obviously, you know, in the CCIE exams, for all the tracks, we now have the design module, which is 3 hours in length. And David helped us with that module for all the exams. So the CCIE program is now 30 years old. And I thought it would be a good time to have a conversation about why the CCIE is still important and why the CCIE is still relevant. But before that, what I would like to do is sort of start with the journey of the CCIE, because that's something that personally sort of fascinates me a bit, how everyone who has gone through the CCIE has their own unique sort of journey and stories and things to share. So with that said, what I would like to do is start with the first steps of how you did you get into the Cisco certifications? You know, did you come out of university and went straight into studying Cisco certifications, or were you working already for an IT company? How did that happen?
Yeah, so for me, I was working for a partner at the time, and I started just doing my CCNA, and then I passed my CCNA, and then I took my CCNP because who works for a partner in here? Right, so partners, right? You need a certain number of certified people in order to maintain the status for the partner.
Uh-huh.
So I was challenged to get the CCNA and the CCNP that way, and then when I was doing my CCNP, the instructor actually approached me and said, "Hey man, have you heard of this program called the CCIE?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And he's like, "Well, you really should do that." So then I started in the many years it took me to get my first CCIE. It took me about 18 months or so to pass my first CCIE.
Okay, how about you, Nico?
So it was at school. My school was a CCNA academy.
Okay.
So one of my lessons was learning CCNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to pass the exam to fit in the course. The teacher was doing his own exam, but we could pass the exam at the end, and we had studied everything. So I didn't have to be prepared for it. Going to school was my preparation. I still failed my CCNA, but I got it on second attempt. So that was nice. I was not too far. Then I joined Cisco, and I
Okay, cool. And how about you, David?
I was a student at the university, and I was asked for by a friend to join Cisco Academy program. I actually had absolutely no clue about it, and he wanted to do it on Saturdays, and he just didn't want to do it alone, so he needed somebody else to. Well, so he would push himself to do it. So he told me, okay, why don't we just go there every Saturday? I said, 8 to 4, the whole Saturday. Like, fine, this type of things that you do with friends, because Well, I thought it was going to be something different. Turns out that he didn't continue in networking, and I did. I finished the academy program because at the university we have an academy, and it just grew from there. Because then I started as a student, then I had the chance to be an instructor in the same academy I graduated from. I got the CCNA, the academy program, like it has all the accounts, once it has all the modules, and it just grew from there. But the first contact was, well, an academy program.
Okay. So looking back, the CCNA, the CCNP, was that like a helpful step towards the CCIE? Was that something that you would recommend to do before you take the CCIE, or something that maybe you'd say, well, you have 5 years of experience, maybe you can just jump straight into the CCIE?
I guess it depends. Oh God, I'd love to say that now that I passed it. But it really depends, because if you're somebody who's starting from scratch as a student, then you would definitely would like to do it in an increment, like taking smaller steps. You don't want to eat the whole elephant in a single chunk. You want to
Yeah, that makes sense.
you want to take smaller pieces, especially because you can also break a big ball into smaller ones, and it's sometimes just frustrating. But if you're somebody who's been in the industry for a while and you definitely have some knowledge, then you can take advantage of the lack of requirements for some of the certifications. To be a CCA, you don't need to be a CCA. To be a CCA, you don't need to be a CCA. You only need to pass the qualification exam, which is a core exam, either of the CCAs you're taking or the qualification of CCDE. But it depends on your particular conditions, your particular circumstances. If you already know stuff, well, you can skip those. If you're starting from scratch, then it would be at least more palatable for you to do smaller steps and do each one of them as good successes.
So for me, I would say the right way, or it was helpful to start with the CCNA, get the training and learn what it was from that perspective. And obviously, what I said earlier, then move to the CCNP. It's as David mentioned, it's an incremental, right? The content. Well, before when I took the CCNP, it was many years ago. There's 4 exams you had to take. So
Yeah, that's what it is.
It was 3, right? 2.
Yeah. So it's evolved, right? And we, they had a troubleshooting exam, so it helped you to prepare you for the CCIE. So I would say definitely, like, in my opinion, you can do it. However, I do mentor people that don't do it that way, and they're able, but they did work in the system though. So it might be a little different from that perspective.
Right, so for me it's a bit special because CCNA gave me the taste, right? That's what made me want to work in networking. So I got a job at Cisco. From there, the work experience is what got me directly to CCIE. So it took me 2 years to get to CCIE,
Okay.
which was early because I was very young. I just started at Cisco, but the lab we had and the opportunities we had, I think made me go a bit faster. But if I had to take the CCNP, that would have meant a lot more study, because that would mean studying a lot more stuff not related to my technology directly. And I struggled at studying, which is why I actually failed 5 times my CCIE. So it was a really painful process, but that's what made me better. But I'm happy that I didn't have to go through these requirements. That was the first one.
Okay. So for you, Dave, actually, because you have 3 CCIEs, yeah, I'm gonna pick on you. You have 3 CCIEs. So my question will be, you obviously, I guess the first one was CCIE routing and switching, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And then at some point you went and decided to take data center, for example.
Yeah. So I took routing, switching, security, then data center.
Right. So for example, when you took security or data center, did you go back and took those CCNP security data center, or because you just already had some level of, obviously high level of understanding, you thought that that's not worth and just going straight to the next one?
That's correct. So once I passed, so I went from my CCNA, CCNP, CCIE route switch. Then I went CCIE security. I did not do any of the professional exams at that point. and then I did the CCIE data center. It was the same. I just
Right. Okay.
doing it that way.
Okay. So in terms of the CCIE, I always find also very fascinating how different people prepare for the CCIE, the CCDE. How did you prepare for it, and what did you find useful, and how did you prepare for the CCIE written, and how that was different to the preparation for the actual CCIE practical exam?
Yeah, so everyone's different, right? And for me, I am not a big person in study groups. This just doesn't work for my style of studying. And I think you just have to understand how that sort of works for you. But what I would do is, and we talked about this in our session as well, that I would deconstruct the blueprint and then kind of figure out my gaps from that. And I've done that for all the CCIEs I've taken. I've also taken the exam as just a way to study. We had that luxury at Cisco to do that. So that was part of my study, and I did it similarly for each of the exams.
Yeah.
Nico?
So for me, again, a bit special because when I went to the CCIE, there was no real material to study. No books, nothing. So my way of preparing for the written exam was actually to read the entire configuration guide and deployment guide, which is something I would have never have done otherwise. And it's crazy the amount of things you learn when you do that. Because you always jump to the chapter like, oh, I need to know more about this feature. You read about this and this. There's a lot of features you just never read about.
Okay.
And that, to me, that was like an enlightening moment. That, and also in the web UI and the CLI, just checking what every option does. I'm like, I need to go and click on every little button, and I need to know by heart what it does and why I would use it.
Uh-huh.
So that if I have a question or requirement, you need to do this, and oh, that's that option, directly, and I know it. And I thought it was just something trivial, and I spent it actually
Okay.
months trying to learn all of that and figure out that I love all of those features,
Uh-huh.
and that was my study.
Cool. CCD tips.
Yeah, get your tears ready. In my case, it's well, it was I can't do specialist regardless. I don't take it specifically that way. So what happened is that when I was taking the DE, then I went to the experience, and I knew that I still had to get to the level and things a bit higher than CCIE. So I had to build all that knowledge over time. It took me years, especially because DE was all about knowing things really well, but at the same time, it's a business. Which means that this is not going to be enough. So you can think about it in a way to get a CCIE, but then there will be some, you forgot some topics. So you know some things, but actually you know. The exam is really good at letting you know that you're missing something. But essentially, I had to build it over time, and as I didn't have any other CCIE, I still have nothing. Then, to me, it was starting from scratch and then taking smaller steps every time.
Okay.
It was all incremental, honestly. Because I also never took any other expert level certification, so I didn't have a method. I didn't have a way of doing things. I didn't have my own, the discovered way of starting and loving. No, I just discovered it over time.
Okay.
Do you guys have any input working at Cisco about the questions seeming like the questions sometimes seem like they're just made to be difficult, not whether you understand the material or not? Do you guys have any input on that? Because it seems like they're made by people that aren't even technicians.
So which exam have you taken?
Several of the MP data center.
Okay.
But, sorry, have you taken any CCI level?
Not IE yet.
Okay.
I'm afraid of it because I'm.
So his question is more. Correct me if I get it wrong. Right? Is more around the content of the question and who writes
the questions? Yeah.
And is it someone that is technical in the writing? Is that kind of your? So Nicholas and I both write content. I have not written content for the CCNP in quite some time, actually. So many years. It's mostly been for the CCIE I write for. So I can share at least my perspective on it. I'm a principal architect, So the questions that in the scenarios that we come up with in the CCIE, which it would be similar for the CCNP as well, like not scenario based, obviously, it's questions based, are usually most likely from the SME. There's subject matter experts that write those. Myself, one or the other one, but multiple. There's hundreds, right? They're influenced by real world environments. Usually, right? So at least when I write questions, they're stemmed from something a customer is asking, or the TAC engineers write questions like what the TAC might see. So they are.
Well, not all questions are equal. Some of them
Yeah.
are actually.
Yeah, so he said not all questions are equal. So I would also add to say, give feedback to those questions in the exam itself. So, like, if you can't understand something, then give some feedback to it. I don't want to add.
That's actually something I would agree
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, so
if you provide feedback, then if you provide feedback during the exam, then the person who is responsible for it is going to read it eventually. And
You should get time to give feedback after the fact because I need some time to decompress.
well, the truth is that after the fact, then how are you going to provide feedback then? Because see, it's in the tool. There is this little button to write a comment. And sometimes, also, what helps is the way that you write the feedback. Because I know some people who just open the box for leave the comment, they just write WTF and that's it, and then that tells me nothing.
That's why I'm saying I need to walk away, compose myself so I can make something intelligent.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to do it right at the moment, but it's essentially what we need because not all the time all the questions would feel as fair. Sometimes the writers are not native English speakers, it might feel a bit difficult to read, it might feel difficult to even assemble. There are many factors.
But all the questions, essentially all the questions go through the same process, to be honest.
Yes.
So to be able to write a question for us, you first have to have that qualification yourself. So that's what I'm a bit confused about you saying it seems that it's not technical people, because if you write a question for CCNA, you have to be CCNA yourself. If you write a question for CCNP and saying CCNP for CCNP security, you have to be CCNP security. For CCNP wireless, you have to be CCNP wireless. I do wireless and infra. Nico will write questions for CCIE wireless because he's CCIE wireless.
Maybe I just wasn't good enough to take the test.
There are many factors involved.
Yeah, it could be many factors.
Exam. It could be mental state.
Yeah.
Also, at Cisco Live, unless you take it the first day, every day gets a bit more complicated because, you would be sleep deprived, among other things. So it also depends on what are the conditions under which you take the exam. But again, not diminishing your experience. If you feel something is wrong, something is not fair, just write it out.
Yeah. But maybe we go back to the CCIE. I was a bit surprised that no one mentioned a home lab, because a home lab was very important for my preparation. So when it comes to the hands-on, how did you guys, because you were working for Cisco, you have access to Cisco equipment already.
So for me, I got my CCIE routing and switching before I joined Cisco, so I did have a home lab.
Right.
Back when I took it, it was a fixed environment, right? It was 6 routers, 4 switches, and 3 backbone routers. They call them backbone routers back in the day. So I went on eBay.
Yeah, I did the same.
And bought 3640s for routers. They supported the code that needed to be supported for the CCIE, and they were cheap. And then I bought some 3550s back in the day, and for my routing for the switching side. And I just practice. When I did my security and when I did data center, I was at Cisco, and I'm not sure what your experience, but at Cisco we have pods. When that used to be fixed, they used to have CCIE pods in our labs, and you could reserve a pod for an next period of months or whatever. Which obviously in the data center is an example. Data center needed ECS and it needed MDS and it needs Nexus 7Ks, right? Obviously, I'm not going to have those at my house. So, but with that, right,
You'll be warm.
Warm up, and I got the power company along me at that point, right? So But nowadays, like it's the modeling labs. There's other ways we can do it, and it makes it a lot easier. So, back when we did it, it was tougher, I think, but for other reasons, right? The availability of equipment. So.
I have a different experience because I didn't have a home lab. The office was my home lab. Not that I lived in the office, but it was a conscious decision to keep my work-life balance. That to study, I would stay in the office, so I would tell my future wife, like, I'm staying later tonight to study, or I'm going to go on a Saturday to the office to study. But when I'm at home, I'm fully at home. That was a conscious decision, on top of the fact that I had a lot more equipment. But I'm saying it was my home lab because I asked my manager to have my own device, so that I would. We had no box back then, so it was not really a choice. But I had to plug them in myself, and then I would try topologies that made no sense, and then I realized myself why it was not working. That was part of my learning.
Okay.
Just messing up and failing a lot.
Okay.
That was the way I learned.
Okay. So Nico, you mentioned your wife, and the CCIE, I always say, is, it's going to take you 6 months, 12 months, maybe even more. And it's not only going to sort of affect your life because you're going to be studying for very long periods of time, but also it's going to affect the lives of people around you, right? Like your wife. So looking back, who were sort of the key people who were the most supportive and really helped you towards, achieving that CCIE?
Well, a little bit my manager, but my wife mostly.
Yeah.
Because it was a clear objective for my career. We discussed it. It was clear for her. It took me 6 months to study and pass the written exam, and a good year to get that out.
Okay. And the key question, how did you convince your wife?
Wow.
How did you say to your wife, I'm going to disappear for 6 months or a year? Did you have any children at the time?
No, not yet.
Right,
But
okay.
I was young. We didn't have we lived together, but we didn't build a house yet.
Right.
So we still have plans ongoing.
Yeah.
And we said now is the right time, right? Because
Okay.
later we're gonna have kids, and now is the right time. Which is
Okay.
why I didn't get a second CCIE, because then I had kids. Therefore, the free time.
Choices were made.
Yeah, no, I made it important. It's one of my career goals. I said to be a senior engineer at Cisco. It's not required to be a CCIE, but it really helps.
Yeah.
I really want to do that, and I mean, it's going to give me a promotion, and it's good for both of us in the long term. Right?
Yeah, of course.
So she said yes for one. She would not say yes, if I say now, I'm going to go 1 year study something else, and 1 year or something else. So that was my experience. She said yes once for 1 year, and that's about it.
Okay. And sort of going back to the same sort of topic of, having to study for very long periods of time. Obviously, because of the length, it is very likely that you're going to encounter some challenges along the way. What would you say, guys, that, were those challenges, and also how did you overcome those challenges that you faced during those, that year or however long it took you to?
The challenge was that I was overly confident when I went for my first attempt. And you don't get an exact score, but seeing, it sounded like I scored 10% or 20%. So that was a big failure. And there was no question where I was like, I don't know the answer. I knew everything, but I didn't do it correctly. I was missing, obviously, details everywhere, so that's why I failed all the points. So it was a realization that I think I know, but I don't know. So then I went back to study, and okay, I know stuff that I took too long, I know stuff I need to improve, etc. And all those failures, I went again and then got a bit more, but still far from passing it. And I went through a phase, you mentioned the questions, I went through the denial anger phase. I'm like, anyway, it's a stupid exam, and questions are fake. Then I realized one of the questions was like, oh, you need to create interfaces on this and this and this device. And I would go and create them manually one by one. And it probably took me, 15 minutes, and I didn't really realize that. I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm asked to create interfaces, I do it. Yeah, but I could do that in 30 seconds, probably. Just first, you can use interface range, then you can just use, you put the commands in a notepad, and you paste it in each device, because they were the same IP, right? The question is made on purpose, but you spot that, oh yeah, the IP is the same for each device, just one bit change. So maybe if I just put it in a notepad and change it and paste, I do something in 30 seconds out of 15 minutes. And then I realized that, and I started saving time and saving time. And on my last attempt, I actually finished the exam earlier, which on my fifth attempt, I was just barely finishing on time. So to me, those were the obstacles, but also the learning.
I would spin the question a little bit differently I would say from an obstacle perspective is don't give up, right? Like I think we're all witnesses here to say out of the 3 that I've had, I think I've so I can probably quickly do the math here. So it took me 3 attempts on routing and switching. It took me 5 attempts on security and 3 attempts on data center. So you don't give up, right? And the security, I know Yusuf is walking around here. We used to present together, and I used to give him a hard time because he wrote the security exam, right? But yeah, it was just don't give up, and I think we're all witnesses of that. We've all taken it multiple times, and just know that you can overcome it. And everyone here that's sitting here listening to us, if you don't have a CCIE today, or if you're looking at another one, you can absolutely do it. It's 100% achievable, right? And we're here to say that you can.
I did my end of study thesis with a Cisco distribution engineer, and I failed it. And I still got hired at Cisco. So don't give up. I signed for that.
Well, I would agree with these honestly. Because first, in the case of DE, you didn't need enough a CCIE to actually pass it. That's one thing. And the other one is, exactly what you said, just don't give up. I failed 7 times. Sounds funny, but it burns me. It was in the course of 6 to 7 years, 3 different versions of the exam, the pandemic was in the middle, many things, but I ended up failing 7 times before passing the 8th time. And every time you get to learn something, one of the most difficult things I would say in my case was to assess myself honestly. Not just, this is nonsense, nobody does that in the real world, blah, 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 blah. Rather, am I understanding this well enough? Am I reading these things properly? Am I identifying what I'm failing at? And sometimes we don't get there because of ego. No, I couldn't have made a mistake. And then someone you read again, oh God, I'm an idiot. But it happens. You think to be honest with yourself. And sometimes it's more about we're looking at the things that we want to look, not necessarily what's right in front of us.
Okay, so you talk about obviously several attempts. My next question will be about on each different attempt, how did you approach, that next attempt? What was different? What did you change?
So let's take data center out of the mix because data center, I had some personal thing that happened in the middle of the data center one, so that's why it took me a couple times there. But I'll pick on security. What I did is we talked about this, right? In that you write down or not write down, but know what's in the exam. You've taken it, right, and then practice it in your labs. And what I did is I approached it differently, right? I looked at it. I kind of explored it. I didn't really study I didn't look at configuration guides because I felt pretty comfortable with the equipment. It was more, to be honest, I would agree with Nicholas. It was more around that speed, right? Security was slow for me for various reasons. And back when I took it, it was still ACS that they didn't have ice back then. So, it's understanding that and kind of changing your mentality to how you're going to approach it differently each time.
You were special. You were special.
No.
Okay.
I don't know what I could answer, what I could add more there.
Okay.
That's the thing that I had a list of topics I kept writing after every attempt. And then initially it was this, and then the next time I was trying to address each one of them, and then, over time the list got shorter. So it was first attempt, second attempt, third attempt, and eventually it just got the shortest way to spin that this was the size of it. But well, understanding where did you make the mistake of how can I improve this. Sometimes I was writing, okay, I failed to understand this multi-case, and then the second time, multi-case again, I did something wrong this time again. But was that just understanding not just the knowledge, but also in which way you were identifying things? Because when we didn't have a structured way of doing things, we kind of feel like the way we have done it is the only one we know. But you try to understand that, okay, so am I analyzing things this way, or is it the right way of doing it? Just question yourself. It doesn't hurt, honestly.
Okay. So maybe we go back to the sort of original question, and why is the CCIE still relevant? Why is important? Why would you advise anyone to still today take the CCIE? What do you think? What are your opinions?
So I have two answers.
Okay.
One is the cheesy, it's not about the objective, it's about the trip, right? It did make me better because I failed
Mhm.
and then I had to force myself to learn and fix my mistakes. And that's also something now I'm proud to have on my resume, on my CV.
Yeah.
I'm a CCIE, and it was very hard for me. So I'm like, I'm not going to go for a second one. Also, I'm specializing in the technology, so I don't really want to do another one. But I want to say, I was 24 and I got my CCIE. I proved that if I put my mind on something, I can do it. Now my objectives are different. I want to do other things in my career.
Yeah.
And it's a choice, right? So if an person says, "Oh, why are you not going for CCIE certificate?" Because that's not one of my objectives right now.
Okay.
But if that became my objective, I would for sure take 1 year of my life and do it. I showed I could do it once. I could do it another time. Second thing, it really does help, to be honest, when you can put CCIE next to your name. Some people are still, they look at it and they talk to you differently. I'm someone who was a bit shy, even though I had some technical knowledge at Cisco. People consider me starting to be an expert, but outside I would not act like an expert. I would still be reserved, not feeling like talking.
Mhm. Yeah.
And being the CCIE in the room, people were like, "What do you think?" So that helped me
Okay.
get over my shyness. I have the badge. I'm the expert, so I started
Yeah.
to act like this.
Okay,
It
yeah.
was not needed. You can, act like an expert. But I have the badge, but for me,
Yeah, I would second that. Right, in my role, I talk to a lot of chief information officers and that executive level, and I think immediately knowing, or it's that instant credibility that comes to it, that they know, oh geez, Dave has a CCIE. Not saying that like that's no immediate thing, but at one point, one of my customers that I had, they actually required everyone on their account at the level that I was at to have a CCIE. So they still do. We still have to have customer or CCIEs at a certain level. At the lower levels, they don't care. But at the level I was at, they want that CCIE. So I think it's the instant credibility. It's that still the knowledge of like, hey, he does have it. Like what he said, that it's an honor to have it personally, right? And it's still an honor to walk around here with the CCIE on your badges, right? So
I would say that if it makes sense for you, even your current career objectives, then go ahead and take it. Because it also depends. If you're, I don't know, I have some friends who they just stopped being engineers and went to become managers or some other thing, and for them it might not make sense. But for other people, if you want to continue as a CCIE, then performing engineering tasks, and you feel like this is going to give you an honor in your CV because it does, then go ahead and take it. In my case, it was more about growing into this particular knowledge that we need to pass the exam. Yeah, the exam is something I achieved, or the certification is something I achieved, but getting there, at least was the thing that really built what I wanted to have, which was some respectable knowledge to be able to carry on some of the tasks. It's career progression as well. It really depends on what you want to do, what you feel like it's going to be you in 3-5 years.
Oh, I have one thing that to my as well. It's actually helped me outside of my technical side as well, right? And yeah, I mean, my career, right? It's definitely helped me. It's definitely propelled me in my career. I don't know if I would be where I am today, but with that, right? Like even the attention to details, like when you're putting something together. I'll give you a quick story. So I have a 13-year-old daughter, and a couple years ago, she comes home from school and she hands me this test, and I'm like, okay. So I'm reading it, and we tell CCIEs, if you're preparing, read the entire exam first. So what do? I read the entire thing, and the last question on it says, write your name and hand it back. Like, don't answer any questions. And I write my name and I hand it back to her. She's like, why did you not? You didn't start answering the questions. I'm like, because it told me I didn't have to. It's like the last question was it talk like so. It's one of those things. It's that attention to detail, reading through things, right, and being able to even outside of work professionally, like it's changed how I've done things as a whole as well.
Okay, guys, that's all we have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the session. Maybe if any of you have any questions, maybe 1 or 2 questions. Sorry, let me maybe.
When will the wireless track be updated in the roadmap?
Oh, that is a tricky question. That is a question. Yeah, that's for me. Okay, thank you. That is a question that I really cannot answer. I will tell you it will be this year, but I can really tell you any much more than that. I'm very sorry, but yeah, it's coming. It's obviously, it's been a few years now since we updated the CCIE wireless. So yeah.
I was asking if it still makes sense to learn Prime and iOS and things like that.
Prime. I cannot answer. I'm really sorry. No more questions.
Not you. No. Oh.
This guy.
Steve, can I have your autograph?
Yes. You want a picture?
Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.